Yo, what you take this thing for? You're listening to the Triggered Thoughts podcast, blood.
Yo, people, what's going on? Welcome to the Triggered Thoughts podcast. I go by your host name, Verbz.
Myself, the Geniusman.
And we have a very special guest in the camp of us today. Yeah? The beautiful lady goes by the name of Silva, otherwise known as Freeflowing Thoughts.
Everyone, beautiful people, thank you.
We're good. We're happy to have you here. You know, it's been a long time coming, free-flowing.
I'm super excited to be here. Truly. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, the pleasure's ours, man. The pleasure's ours, man. The pleasure is ours. So listen, I'm going to start off by asking you guys how you guys have been, if you guys have a good week so far.
Yeah, I'm just a bit under the weather.
Yeah, I know.
So, yeah.
I know you've been unwell for.
So I'm just trying to... A few days. So I'm just trying to recover.
Is it man flu?
But yeah.
Man flu.
They say, yeah. Of course, yeah. I try not to give it any of these fancy names, but whatever it is, it's not nice.
Yeah.
Oh, get well.
Yeah. No, man, thank you.
And how are you doing free flowing? How's your week been?
You know what? It's actually been really nice because I had a really lovely weekend, as in previously. Therefore, leading up to the rest of the day has been really nice. I'm buzzing from last weekend, family, function, events and all that kind of wonderful stuff. So I'm actually feeling quite delicious, actually. Thank you for asking.
That's good. Glad to hear, man. Sounds like you've had a very positive week.
And how are you? How are you?
I'm good. I thought nobody was going to ask, but I'm so glad you did. That's why we got you here, You know what I mean?
Okay, so how
Nah, I'm good, man. You know what I mean? Just getting on with it, enjoying the little sunshine. But this week's been a bit funny as well, man. It's been a bit cold here and there, isn't it?
This is London. You know how it is.
I know. Oh, all right, well, let's get back on track still. You know what I mean? So people, listeners, viewers, yeah? Today we're going to do something different. A different type of angle, yeah? As we've got the great free-flowing thoughts in the house, yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to make Silva take over the show and host, yeah? Because we rate her hosting skills that much, we're putting her at the forefront.
Yes, man.
Yeah? So free-flowing, I'm going to let you take the reins from now.
Okay, guys, thank you so much once again for inviting me onto your platform. And it's a real privilege for you to ask me to kind of vibe with you and somewhat host. So let's see how it goes. Well, after chopping it up with you guys, I felt really inspired. And I came across a video of a Hollywood actress who spoke about a topic that really had me triggered in my thoughts.
I like that.
That's good. That's good.
And what I came up with, first of all, that really had me thinking, and the last few days, quite reflectively, is the topic on everything is not your parents' fault. Ooh. Yeah? And this is what Tahaji, mentioned her name, was speaking about. And then I went on to add in brackets in my mind, thinking, okay, so where do we go from here? If everything is not our parents' fault, where do we go from here? Okay, so guys, let me start with Verbz. Yeah, I'll start with Verbz. Like, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear me say everything is not our parents' fault?
You know what? That's a very good question. It's a very good question. Puts me on the spot, but it's a very good question. But you know what? I think of for me, I feel there's a lot of, especially within the younger generation. Me personally, that's what I think with the type of work that I do. There's a lot of young children and young adults, so teenagers, early 20s. I personally have come across where they find it difficult to take accountability for things. And I think their generation is on this blame game thing rather than looking in the mirror. Now, of course, you can't argue at the fact that, you know, these youngsters have probably had a challenging or troublesome childhood, you know, or difficult childhood. It's not what they probably would have chose to, you know, have experienced. But at the same time, parents have had troubled times themselves.
Exactly.
I think sometimes, unless they're, you know, we won't make excuses for parents that are abusers, but unless, you know, they're abusers, parents do generally try. Some of them just don't know. Parenting is trial and error, isn't it? No one has,
Absolutely.
do you know what I mean, a manuscript of the perfect way to parent, you know? And I think youngsters now, and some adults, find that difficult to understand, and they have this idea in their head of they should have been parented perfectly, you know. And I think because of that, when they have their experience in later life, things ain't going right for them. They don't look at things, look back, connect the dots, try to improve circumstances for themselves. In taking responsibility, they just lay the blame elsewhere. And I think that's sort of coming to be common culture amongst children and young people, young adults now.
Gosh, you answered that so well in terms of, wow. I mean, yeah, one would have thought you scripted that so amazing. It's quite reflective. You've given us quite a lot to reflect on. And if I was to, like, you know, I don't know, isolate parts of what you've just said in terms of accountability, number one, you mentioned, and that made me think of, okay, so as an adult, where do we go from here with the accountability? So, for an example, I don't know, the most common ones could be, as you mentioned, abuse, some kind of abuse, whether it's neglect, physical, intimate abuse, case-sensitive cases. Let me just use that term. As an adult, I think although people can take accountability, such as acceptance, seeking therapy, and I'll touch back on therapy in a moment. I think one of the reasons why people will always hold their parents to fault, even if their parents were absent and these things happen, is because we somewhat or greatly see our parents as our safe, complete space. You are that unspoken hero.
I agree.
Yeah?
I agree.
So any of neglect, abuse, abandonment, a person twice our age, many doesn't get over it. And the reality is, I once learned when I was studying therapy years ago that there's things that we never get over, and it's things that we learn to live with. There's many things we've learned to live with, but we've never got over it. That can be betrayal, heartache, abuse. That can be a number of things. And bearing in mind that people from our melanated background, unless you are in maybe America where it's quite trendy to have therapy, it's kind of, if you look at the kind of African or Asian or, you know, the melanated background of us people, they don't really subscribe to therapy.
That is true.
True.
It's more like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, get on with it, man. Just shake it off.
Yeah. But then those are the same individuals, upon my observation, that's actually got a lot in their closet. And that's okay, I don't know if I should even get into any layers, but let me just go.
Get into the layers.
All right. Yeah, Genius, I'm coming to you in a moment. Yeah. All right. Okay. Example. I know that there are families within our cultural background, let's say Caribbean and African, let's start there, where one may have been, let's say, sexually abused, because there's been countless stories that I've heard and it's been shared with me. And when they've gone to tell let's say the mom, let's start with the mom, it's been, let's not say anything, or you know what, it didn't really happen. And it turns out because the mom has had her own molestation that she's been dealing with or had dealt with, and never actually, experienced but not dealt with, sorry. So when it's come now for her daughter, because remember, we don't really discuss boys, do we? Yeah, it's always the daughter. We'll get into that in a minute. Yeah?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, we don't really hear about the boys saying, Mum, this happened, but there's a barrage of boys that hasn't been able to say. We know that. Yeah? You will find that the mums want to either keep the children quiet, not our generation, mind you, not our generation. Yeah? Because the mother has experienced it herself. And her mum, it's three. I know multiple families, to be honest, and 3 generations of what I know it's happened to the the daughter, no, 4, the granddaughter, 4 generations,
wow,
and the mother, and no one spoke about it.
That's crazy.
Wow.
And you will find that sometimes in those older generations, the parents keep the man and get rid of the daughters.
That's crazy.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. And sometimes with the older generation, I realize as well, like, it's almost like it's become their normality, so they're kind of numb to it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So in those cases, I think, you learn a camouflaged survival, it seems. I'm even reflecting on myself as well. For me, thankfully I didn't experience that. But it's going to be other things that can create trauma. And actually, if you think of like the Buddhist reflectivity, and I love Buddhist quotes, I love all of that. I once heard a Buddhist say that desire is the crave of desires that has us inflict these feelings on ourselves, such as depression or anxiety. Another topic's not about that, but I'm going there to come back here. Yeah? So it's almost like saying when something happens in our life, or if we are pondering on something, are we manifesting that within ourselves? Because it is according to how you deal with things, no?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So if we don't lose track of what we're talking about, and let me just go, reiterate, not everything is your parents' fault. Where do we go from here? As an adult, if you've experienced any form of poor treatment, where do you go? So, Genius, maybe I should go to you. We've kind of left you out a little bit there, a bit too long. So let me go to you.
Yeah, go on.
What's your thoughts on that subject? What comes to mind for you when you hear that title? Not everything's our parents' fault.
Well, the thing is, it's easy to go through something yourself personally and not accept the responsibility, meaning that you're looked at as the child, so you feel that there should be an element of protection. This wouldn't have happened if you had been watching, or this should have never happened. It's all your fault. I wasn't protected. You wasn't there for me. I think many people struggle with accepting certain things, and I feel that as you get older, you mature, and you should be able to kind of just with age comes wisdom. I feel that a lot of people could try to try and understand more, or even ask the parents, I need to understand what happened, why, how was this able to happen, depending on the situation. Like, I'll give you an example. For me, speaking personally, I went into care, and I asked my dad the other day, obviously details pertaining to do you remember when I went to Brighton and I tried to get some information, but it was kind of like he couldn't remember. But the thing is, obviously I'm in my 40s now, and I still remember that experience from a young age. I was around 8, 9. I was around 8, 9, but I can remember the details very clearly. But prior to going into temporary care, I was obviously staying with his girlfriend that he had met. Yeah. And it wasn't a nice experience. That's what I mean. And it was kind of like I was dumped. Like when someone's like, "Oh, you're going to be staying with this person for a while." But I still remember. I could see it, in my head like yesterday. I can picture the block, and I remember the words that I said to him. was, oh, can you bring my toys? And I cried. I said, okay, and he said, yeah, I'm going to bring your toys. And I remember at the time when I lived in Brixton, he brought my toys in a big black bag. Does that mean? But, obviously being a child, I didn't understand. I'm with this complete stranger that, I didn't really get on with, if that makes sense. Does that mean? But at the same time, I was confused. I didn't have any answers. Does that mean? I was, and prior to that, I was a problem child in school. I had issues in schools, in a lot of the schools that I'd gone through. Does that mean disruptive? Not concentrating. The normal things. Struggling to take things on board, and does that mean? And to be honest with you, it took me, I'd say, in my adult years to kind of, just kind of realize that things happen. I know my dad had a very bad experience growing up, with his dad. Does that mean? And I, as a father myself now, have to make sure that I don't project my trauma, my past experiences, and then allow it to affect my children. Does that mean? Because it's I feel that when things are unresolved and they're deep rooted internally, you can end up reliving that experience and passing it on to your children. Do you see what I mean?
The generational trauma, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, I did the counselling. Does that what I mean? And it took me a while to be able to, forgive and just kind of say, I'm at this age now. I don't want to end up being that person that's, messed up. Because I've seen a lot of people, they don't forgive, they're bitter. Everything's everybody else's fault. But then at the same time, I do remember from a young age that my dad told me, when I was young, the experiences, he ran away from home. I didn't run away from home, but he ran away from home, from a young age, because obviously he had a very, bad relationship with his dad, as a child. This is what I mean? And I feel that when you have those kind of experiences, you pass it on. Because obviously I felt that even the relationship with my dad, it wasn't good. He did his part in terms of maintenance. I would never take that from him. Maintenance, he was good in that aspect. But in terms of, I love you, son, I never can recall a moment where I ever heard the words, I love you from my dad. This is what I mean? Never.
Gee, can I jump in and ask some paramount questions? Thank you. I want you to continue because you just gone 10 layers in, and I love it. Yeah. Okay. Let's, as they say, let's unpack some of that if you don't mind.
Yeah. Go on,
anyone watching this, you've hit so many bullet points that there's going to be an array of audience that can relate to different parts, whether they've been in care or not. It's so reflective. And let me take the opportunity to thank you from now to even for sharing that, because it's very, very profound. Yeah. So you know what? The first thing that stood out to me when you were speaking was when you said the first thing was, try to talk to my dad and he can't remember. And I thought, doesn't he? Or is that a part of the camouflage survival I was talking about where you can't afford it? What's your thoughts on that?
No, to be quite honest, I was like, initially I thought, but I didn't press. I said, okay, fair dues. It could be genuine, it might not. Do you know what I mean? It could be even an element of guilt, but I did my part. Like Verbz, kindly said, what, try and ask questions, because obviously we did a podcast on this, and to be quite honest with you, I didn't think it. I didn't really have the information. So you asked some very good, vital questions, and I couldn't answer them because I was like, oh my God, like that's actually a good question. I need to ask him. But yeah, I did ask him, and he couldn't remember. I can actually tell you.
And I'm asking you it. Do you? I mean, even though I know, and I don't want to stop your flow, but there's so much in there that if I don't ask paramount questions, like just to even strengthen it or go deeper, if you don't mind, yeah. I'm wondering whether you believe that he doesn't remember, and if he doesn't remember, why doesn't he remember? And that's a very weird question, but let me tell you why I'm asking that again.
Yeah.
Okay, let me give you a real example of why I'm asking that. I'm not very photographic memory in terms of, like, let's say academics or directions. I'm typical to say, forget about that, yeah? Yeah. So in terms of the feeling, they say we forget details, but we don't forget the feeling.
Yes.
Of situations, right? So let's focus on that. I have realized that over the years, or whether it's disappointment or whether it's things of that nature, I will hone on it. And I feel like my survival mechanism has learned to be like, next. So although I accept and I process, because I don't ignore my emotions, I will process it. I have learned the way my mind has got over it is to literally see it, process it, and it's gone. So when I'm now wanting to remember, for whatever reason, I might be having a dialogue with somebody. I'm like, what happened? I genuinely don't remember the deals that I want to remember.
Wow.
Like a couple of things that I've experienced, and I'm like, I didn't really want to remember, but when I'm having a conversation, I now remember. And I'm like, I really don't remember the details. And I feel like that's a part of a rescue. I haven't blanked it out. I haven't intentionally blanked it out, because obviously I processed it, and I would have chosen to speak to someone about it, or tap into therapy, especially as I was studying it myself. And I don't remember. Genuinely do not remember. So I wonder whether that was your dad's survival mechanism, or did he say, I don't remember because it's easier than bringing up that embarrassment and pain and shame. And that's where we can expand to as well a little bit later when we talk about forgiving thyself for the things that we've done in our life. So we can get to that later, maybe, yeah? But, yeah. So what's your thought? Do you think that...
To be quite honest with you, when I asked him, I felt like it was kind of like, it was just, I don't remember. There was not really there was no substance to it. So it kind of just seemed like there wasn't any kind of, let me think. It was like, no. Huh?
He lied.
Yeah, so you know what I mean? And I left it. I didn't, but for me, obviously I'm in my 40s, and that was, you're talking over 30 years, but I can remember the names, I can remember the people, you know what I mean? And, it was, even when I was living with that family, it was a white family, I have some good memories, but in terms of why I was there, I can honestly tell you, I don't know, because obviously it was like there was a transition between where I was living in Woolwich Francis Street at the time, then being put in a cab, taken to Brighton. So just, I mean, my belongings were in a cab, so there was no one accompanied me there in the cab. I was just
9, did you say?
Probably about 7, maybe 7, 8, around that age. Yeah, 7, 8. Because I do remember I went to it was primary school. I do remember that. Yeah.
Allow me to ask, how long were you in care for?
That's a very good question. Vaguely, I'd say probably. Do you know what I can say to you? It was definitely maybe about a year, because even when I finally came back, I kind of went. I went to another primary school at the time.
So the thing is, the reason why I asked the question is because I'm sat here and I'm reflecting on the fact that those who were in care for an extensive period of time, there's always a stigma. I've noticed growing up, there's always a stigma, not my stigma, but I've noticed that people have this stigma of people that's been in care because allegedly, there's always like, you can tell that person's been in care because of how they behave, kind of thing. And I'm always like, people that I know that went for 5 minutes, so they wouldn't be classified as indoctrinated in care because they went for respite or whatever. It's not the same as someone who grew up in care. So would you say like a respite moment as opposed to growing up in care?
To be quite honest with you, and now that you said that, it was, I wouldn't even say like it was, like like when people are put into care like through the normal procedures like social services. It was different. It was kind of, I would say it was kind of like more some sort of mutual agreement where they may have reached out. Just thinking about it now, from my past memory, it's like they had obviously, I don't know how back then, because it's been a long time. Things were different back then, but they somehow managed to get in contact with this. I don't know if it was a family, and I was just temporarily living with these people. I started school, living with them. This is what I mean. So it was temporary.
Were they nice?
Yeah, they were. You know, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, it was two brothers. This is me. Obviously, I don't know the surname, but Paul, Ben, Jane was her name. But yeah, and to be honest, to have that memory at this age, I'm in my 40s, it just goes to show you that it's so important that when you have children that are young, you create those good childhood memories, because I realize that there's a time where things retain in your mind. That's what I mean, because remember, I'm young. So when I look back at my past, I now make sure that I do whatever I can possible to make sure that my children don't have any bad experiences, that as they get on later on in life, they, just what I mean, it becomes not trauma, but it, just what I mean, because people tend to remember the negative more than the positive, if that makes sense. The bad experiences, it will kind of be with them, because this will be with me for life. That's what I mean. You know, I'd gone through counselling because, you know, my mum said I was, like, obviously I had issues, and I used to play with my fingers. So that's nerves. I used to play with my fingers a lot.
I see it as a self-soother as well. I mean, it doesn't have to.
No, you know, like
sometimes it's, I mean, or I might do for my hair. Or do you pick your fingers again?
Yeah, I used to. No, I don't do it no more. But I used to pick it to the point where, it was. So she used to say that's nerves.
Do you now? No, back then, were you aware of why you were picking your fingers?
Do you know what? To be honest with you, through what I experienced, with my dad's wife, it kind of affected me deeply, because she was very strict. That's what I mean, in terms of
would we say
standards. Yeah, I would say, because
whatever in this moment, please feel free to flow, but also feel free to pause if you need to take a moment, because it is a case sensitive subject, and it's not easy. And I absolutely salute the fact that you as a male, now I shouldn't have to say you as a male, but we know where we're living, which is a place where men don't speak so much like that. You guys are getting better now. There are forms, and you guys are able to speak, but it's never, males don't really come forward so much and speak like that. I mean, people like Kevin Gates have spoken lately, and not lately, but in the last how many years, and it's been amazing. You know, Mike Tyson and people like that. So it opens up doors for men to feel comfortable. Yeah. You know, so. So if you want to take a moment to get, you want to flow, we can bring Verbz in to see what Verbz feels in regards to. But actually, Verbz, you mentioned something whilst you were speaking, and when I asked him about whether he thought his father really didn't remember, or whether it was a camouflage survival moment and he didn't want to get into it, and he was like, he lied. Tell me about that. Why do you feel like he lied? What's the reflectivity point for you?
I don't know Genius's dad, innit? But I don't know, when I told him, because obviously I was the one that encouraged Genius to go and ask his dad questions. I said, you need to know these things, how you ended up in there, or, I don't know, he said that he wanted to reconnect with that family because they were good. So I said to him, I started giving him pointers as to how he can access his information through the local authority, but he needs to find out what local authority he was under. So now I asked him the questions as to how he'd got there to the family's home. He said he wasn't accompanied or anything. So I was like, that sounds strange. No social worker. I said, did anybody meet you there? And he said, nah. So I was like, oh, that sounds strange. So
that's very strange.
Yeah, it sounds strange. So when he was telling me what happened, and I said to him, ask your dad, like, certain questions. So when he asked, and he said, my dad said he doesn't remember. Genius, let me just ask you quickly, when he said he doesn't remember, did he stop and think for a little bit, or was it almost like an instant, I don't remember?
It was instant.
Right. You see what I'm saying?
Instant, yeah.
I said, when Genius told me now, I said to Genius, I don't know, man, it sounds like farming or something, because the wife that he was with was an African woman. I know African people used to use that process back in the day, innit? The farming process. So I said,
tell us about that. Like, elaborate for those who don't know what that means.
all right, from what I know of, I can't say the exact year, but I believe it's like, say, maybe 60, 70 sort of time or whatever, when the Africans come into Britain and they wanted to, so say like a husband would come down and he's left his wife back home and he's coming in to set up in England, but he needs to put in the work to be able to rent himself a house, then slowly move up the ladder. When he's got enough money, he can send for his wife. Then his wife could come, maybe they both work, put their money in a pot, buy a house, and when they've set their foundation solid in England, then they start sending, or they'll bring the kids while they're working, and they'll leave the kids with white British families that would be paid for it.
Oh,
Do you get what I'm saying?
Okay, so you think it was like a private setup that happened as opposed to work authorities?
Yeah, like a private agreement. That's what I think. And when I said that to him, I said to him, I'm not sure when that stopped though, because from what I know of, that was quite in the earlier days, but I don't know when it stopped. So something said to me, Google it, yeah? And when I Googled it, it said that farming happened in the 70s and the 80s, and it was known to have stopped in the 80s, but they said there is some evidence that there's a possibility that it continued throughout the 90s. And that's when Genius went to there. Do you know what I'm saying? So I was thinking, nah, man, it feels like this must be that situation. Do you know what I mean?
That's a really reflective point. I would have never even thought of that. So let's go back onto Genius then. So you were there for a year. They were classified as your foster parents, yeah?
Yeah.
There for a year. If Dad doesn't remember, which let's say that we accept, every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. No different to a song.
Yeah.
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 So if Dad doesn't remember the middle, Dad doesn't remember the beginning. He's got to know the middle and the end. They can't unless there's not a full-blown amnesia happening here, or not amnesia. What do you call it? Yeah, or dementia happening. Here. So, what part of the story has he taken accountability for in remembering, or is it zero?
It's zero. And one thing I can say to you is this: what I do remember, prior to coming back, they had bought a house. So it's almost like the place that they were living. I was living with his girlfriend, obviously, which was later on to be his wife. So I was living with this woman. He wasn't living there, so he would come every so often to see me. So it was kind of like she was taking care of me full time, if that made sense. You know what I mean? So
okay,
does that make sense?
It does. So my bad. Go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, and obviously, being young, I do remember I wasn't happy. You know what I mean? Because it's kind of like, you're used to being with someone, and then all of a sudden now you're with this complete stranger.
Wow.
That's it was, honestly, and I do remember, I cried, and I remember saying, can you bring my toys? You know what I mean? I do remember that, and then he said, yeah, bring them next time I come up, and he brought them in a big black bag. You know what I mean? I remember. But in saying that,
specifics, the black bag, the toys, and things that you remember. So as we're now kind of focused on elements of your journey, as we look at the title of this actual talk of not everything is down to our parents, basically, and then I bracket it and say, where do we go from here? What age did you decide to have counselling, and who inspired you to even consider that?
Well, you know what? I was,
kind of from our background, so to speak.
To be honest with you, I'd say later on in my, I'd say probably in my teens, it was my mum that said, "Oh, you need to get counselling," because obviously I'd gone through a lot.
Your biological mother, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And obviously, what had happened is obviously I was very unhappy. Things progressed on. They bought a house, and I didn't really like the way she was treating me. I was pretty much like a slave, if that made sense. Does that mean? And one night I just lost my temper, and I cried. I said, I want to go and live with my mum. That's what I said. I want to go and live with my mum. Like it's like, to be honest, I was scared, but it just came out. You know what I mean? I think it was out of anger and frustration.
Oh my God! What was her response? What was your father's girlfriend's response when you said that?
I cried, and she said, "Go and cry in your dad's ears and tell him." That's what she said to me. Yeah, that's what she said.
Still around you there?
No. They divorced a long time ago. That's what I mean. But it was. At the time, he was in.
He's gone now.
Huh?
I said, so I don't have to pay her a visit. She's gone now. Yeah.
Yeah, no, she's gone.
Was that statement?
Yeah,
wow.
it was crazy, man. Because the thing is, my dad was sleeping, and I went round to his side and woke him up. He goes, and he looked at me and he's like, "You're not happy? You want to go live with your mum?" And I said, "Yeah." And then he arranged for it.
I thought that when you said that to her, that your dad wasn't there at the time.
No. Sorry. So basically, this is the house at the time, and this is the new house. Yeah, this is the new house. Right. Yeah, sorry. When I'd been living there for a while. Yeah, this is the house that they had bought in Charlton. And yeah,
that he arranged it so you could have gone to live with your mum. Was there? Okay, so basically, you could have lived with your mum anyway, but it must have been a reason why. That's the part that he's saying he doesn't remember, right? Am I correct?
What's that with the care bit?
I'm saying, when you spoke to your dad, he said, okay, then he arranged it and he went to live with your mom. Yeah?
Yeah.
That then tells us that you could have lived with her anyway. Yeah?
Yeah. In saying that, I'll be honest with you, what happened is when they broke up, my dad always told my mom, if you ever break up, I'm to stay with him. So that's the situation there. Does that mean?
Okay.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
What cultural background you're from?
Oh, my dad's Guyanese and my mom's Jamaican.
Okay, and the reason why that's interesting is because I think sometimes when we speak as if our voice covers every other culture, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
Many elements of people's stories will be down to cultural backgrounds or religious beliefs. Yeah. Many behaviors, like literally indoctrinated, and it goes on and on and on and on. And often in a lot of these, or even like, cultural, not even just religious, but cultural. And this is where a lot of, I think, the silences comes from.
That makes sense, yeah.
I'm not saying it is your background, because I was keen to find out what it was.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, yeah. So, yeah, I was born here.
So, Guyanese and Jamaican, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So my dad came over to this country. His dad sent for him when he was young. And likewise, my mum, they both obviously came over when they were young. You see what I mean? So, it was quite an experience, and, one that to deal with. Yeah, it was not a nice experience growing up in that household. You see what I mean?
Would you say, because, I said it slightly earlier, a little bit earlier, that there's many things that we learn to live with and we never get over. And I know society likes to say, get over it. If they knew how the mind or the spirit works, we, for example, we can eliminate objects around us, right?
Yeah.
So let's, for example, I get rid of the person's clothing and pictures and whatever, but it doesn't mean that our spirit or soul doesn't trap trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah?
True.
Yeah, that's the part I think that we don't always understand when we're saying to each other, get over it. We say, to our friends, get over it, all this and that.
Innit? Yeah.
We trap trauma in our bodies. Yeah. And sometimes, I've even been saying lately that I feel like I've got that. And that can be a bang on the leg. It can be a bang to the head. A trauma comes in many ways. Spiritual, emotional, psychological, physical.
Yeah.
But you see, like, emotions that then, remember, the thoughts that then affect the feelings and so on and so on. And we internalize this. Elements of that can affect your physical body, can make you sick.
Definitely.
Yeah, it can actually give you, or even if you're not physically sick, you can be mentally, again, emotionally, or even feel a heaviness within your body because there's trauma trapped. Yeah. And For some people, they may use sexuality to try and alleviate that and not understand the mechanics.
Very true.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's true.
I don't go to go that deep, but I can if you want. Do you know what I mean?
It's true, man.
Yeah.
People need to hear these things, man.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, you know, I'll just keep it, for example, for us to be light and fluffy, you know, some people, you know, may decide to party every weekend. And because I know people that party every weekend and they say they love it, they love music, and I believe them. But I also think you're trying to party away something else like loneliness.
Yeah. It's something, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, this individual, for example, too, are very great in their own company, but there's a difference between loneliness and being alone. So
That's true, you know.
Difference, because I love my own company, but you can be in a 10-year relationship. You're not alone, but you feel lonely.
Yeah.
I never thought about it like that, you know, because I used to struggle with, like, staying at home back in the day, like teenagers, like late teenagers, early 20s. And I always used to fight myself from going to the club, but I'd end up going to the club. But when I think about it now that you said that, it was probably because I didn't want to be alone.
Yeah, and you know what? It's actually okay. I think a lot of our emotions are okay, just as long as we can, like, join the dots and be like, okay, that's why I'm like this, and okay, I don't know why I'm like this, but, you know, so I think that things that sit on us, it would be nice if we became a bit more mindful. I say we, as a whole, with the reality that we learn to live with many things. Yeah? It doesn't mean that we've gotten over it.
Yeah.
You know, and
Is he
for
frozen?
example, have I frozen?
No, genius.
Gee, so whilst you're sorting yourself out, we just keep it flowing, yeah?
Yeah, he's come back now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was saying that...
Yeah, I thought, you lot froze. Yeah.
Yeah, there's many, many, many things that we learn to live with, and sometimes, the prettier someone is the more trauma they're carrying. The most, slicker man is, sometimes the more trauma they're carrying. So physical doesn't always show. We carry it well, but sometimes we haven't allowed ourselves to truly... I've been saying that we process and we think and we feel, but for example, there was a long period of my life. I was a young mom, and I remember I'd be like, come on, let's get on with it. And it's great that I could survive and get on with it and get to this day where I'm a grandma, aka grandmother. Get to that stage and live life and, all that kind of great stuff. But did I allow myself to feel the process? Really feel the process? No, I couldn't afford to. Because maybe I would break and I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah, oh, wow.
You see what I'm saying? So it's different to me saying different ages and different levels, and I was young. Again, I say a young mother. So and I lived in an era by myself. I lived in Surrey, didn't know anybody else there. But 1 year I got my first property way out, far away from everybody, this first house, everything. So my life was very, very, very challenging. I had to warm up real quick.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what cocky gets you, isn't it?
For real.
So now I have to warm it up real quick. So for me, as I look back on my journey, many elements of motherhood or early relationships with men, guys and stuff, there wasn't. You can't fully. It's like if you're going through a breaking point. You can't really let yourself break. You got to get through it. So that means there's a part of you that's resisting for the better, but you're still not letting yourself. You're not feeling. Because feeling all of that made me break.
Yeah.
But then once you get past that stage, you've got multiple layers of things that you haven't allowed yourself to feel in case you break. You got to keep going.
Absolutely.
And I would say my ancestors went through 50,000 times worse. I can do this. So one day, a friend of mine said, "How are you?" And I'm like, "I'm not all right." And he was like, "What you?" And that told me that I was always saying, "Oh, I'm fine, I'm great. I look poppy, and every time you see me, I'm popping, isn't it?"
Yeah.
It's a habit.
But then,
you answer that in a habitual way, though, isn't it?
Okay, so I felt like, you know what, it was time for me to unlayer now to this particular friend of mine. Me and him were really tight. It's like taking off the lashes for us women, and the nails and the contacts and the weave. Well, my hair's real, but let's say the weave or whatever. Taking it all off and sitting in your vulnerability. And I was like, I'm not all right. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, I'm stressed and I feel depressed. And looked at me like, He was perplexed, because remember, he's always seen me and I'm good. I'm hosting, I'm this, I'm that. But inside there was a childlike self, crying out for whatever it was. And I say childlike self because even though we sit here in our 40s, everyone has a childlike self, which normally... And that can come out in different ways. It can come out when you're being positively playful with your partner. It can be with your children, or it can be the negative way where you play up in your relationships. You really play what that look like. And sometimes that part of when you play up in relationships stems from childhood.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because that's the part now where you're like, it's a bit like saying, give me approval. You don't understand me. We say, you don't understand me, you don't get me. But they wasn't tailor-made.
People lash out.
No, it was tailor-made to get all of me and you. But we have this thing that we do to people, the accountability that we place on them for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all of this is where I once again remind us of the talk we're having today, which is, where do we go from blaming our parents? Where do we go from here now, in brackets? Like, where do we go now? Like, you chose to have therapy. Let's go back onto Verbz. Like, what's your thoughts on, let's talk about therapy for a moment. What's your thoughts on counselling for Black people? Some people I know only go to Black therapists. I don't care what colour there is, but the race is. But what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think if you've been through certain traumatic situations and whatever not, and challenges, and you can't connect the dots yourself, because I do believe some people can connect the dots themselves. It's about holding the meds, isn't it? Whether you're dedicated enough to sit down and hold the meds and set your environment, and invest that time in yourself. But if you're not a person that's able to do that, I definitely would recommend going to a counsellor or a therapist or something. And it is important, because talking alone itself is therapy, innit? Do you know what I mean? Absolutely.
What's your personal definition on what counselling therapy is about? And I asked that because of the example you gave for why maybe someone should go. What's your definition of what a counsellor is or does?
It's a listening ear, innit? But they also, it's non-judgmental. It's a listening ear. But with that listening ear, they also guide you to, what's the right word I can say? Discover the answers for yourself through your talking. Do you know what I mean? So, you talk to them and they'll be like, oh, okay, so how did that make you feel? Or whatever, then you're...
Therapy yourself, have you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I studied it as well.
Okay, and you see how I know that? Because a couple of things you said were told me that you had to have studied it or you had it.
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah? Do you want to carry on?
Yeah. So, they just guide you towards discovering the answers yourself. And then, sometimes they might give you a little bit of work to take home and think about and that kind of thing. And, you know what I mean? You can put all pieces together a little bit more. And then you just have your own revelations. And then it's what you do with it from there. And you start making what you're talking about and what you've discovered, you start putting it into action. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Into your life.
Did it work? Did it work for you? And I asked that for... I'll tell you why I asked that question now. Did it work for you?
Yeah, I would say it did, but I'd say when I did it, I didn't take it as serious at the time, if you get what I'm saying. But then afterwards, things weren't going the way that I wanted it to go, and I was still encountering the same sort of issues. So I was like, man, what have you got to lose, man? Just invest in it properly and use it. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes when you do counselling as well, you withhold information, innit? And that don't help.
Absolutely. I was going to go on to ask how long you had therapy for, and would you recommend it to somebody else?
Yeah, I would. Yeah. I had therapy to I had to learn how to love, I should say. Yeah, I had to learn how to love. So basically, my
When I
mum.
was going to kiss right now, that was too cute.
Yeah, no, yeah, you still. But yeah, no, you know what it was like. My you know when you spoke earlier about what's the word I'm trying to think about what you said, like a generational curse, like being handed down. So it's like great grandparents handing down the same behavior.
Generational trauma, whatever you're going to call it, yeah.
Yeah. So like that. So my grandmum wasn't a person who showed love because of what they went through. And then they parented my mum in the same fashion. And then my mum parented me and my siblings in the same fashion. I think the only one that came close to getting more of a balanced parenting style with love involved and stuff like that was my younger sister. Do you know what
Can I ask a really important question as you right there? I'd love to know when you say love. The reason why it's so important that I ask this question is I'm going to go on to share a little bit myself. But when we use the word love, sometimes, I'm not saying it's for you, so I'm going to ask you to fine tune that. Sometimes we were loved, but maybe not told, I love you.
That's it.
So what I'd like to know, right? And it's important I say that because as an adult now, you know, we can be, we can speak our truth, but also fine tune. Because when we say like, oh, I wasn't shown love, when I look at not being shown love, that can look like neglect, that can look like abuse, and I wasn't any of those things.
100%.
Yeah,
I get you. Yeah.
So love to some people can be, I fed you. You've always had clean clothes. You've always had a nice bedroom. You went to school. You were safe. Nobody never harmed you in our presence. That is the epitome of love to many, maybe the foundation to the authorities.
Yeah.
Yeah. Authorities would never say, put that child in the care because the mum said, I love you, or get him a hug and a kiss every day after school. Do you understand?
Very true.
So, right, so I don't know your background, but I say that because clearly I've lived that, and I can share that in a minute, but I, as a teenager, I had to fine tune that I was very loved. It just wasn't the rendition how I wanted it. And I was told, we don't live in the Waltons, like my uncle would say. Yeah? So for you, yeah, so, you know, like, good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Sue Ellen. A lot of black folk, whether you're Caribbean, whether you are African and even Asian and many other backgrounds, didn't have the emotional tools to pass on. But what I will say before I pass it back on to Verbz is that one thing that I can't accept, and I've been told to accept this, and I'm still working on this. When people say like family, oh, you know, it's the older generation. Yes, we get it. But one thing I find hard to accept is if you were raised a certain way and it wasn't right to you, you must know wrong from right. There's got to be that level of tools up here. So if you use that part, I can't. No, actually, I don't want. I'm not going to accept it. Yeah, because I kind of feel like if you would say, "Oh, I wasn't raised that way," I wasn't raised right, you know, then that means you are aware that something was absent in your life yourself. What I would accept is you was unable to break that chain that I did. Yeah, that's what I accept. You were unable to break that chain. You didn't choose to be the one, and neither was it your calling to break that chain. It is kept going on through generations. But don't tell me you didn't identify, because you know there was a hole in. They got holes in their hearts. They know they do. The pain, the trauma, whether it's beings, whether it's whatever it is. So why would you not? You know it's wrong, but it's best you say, "I need help."
Very true.
Yeah, so going back to you, V, like, when you say that, you know, you have to learn how to love, because identify for us, like, what does that look like for you? What did the absence of love look like for you?
You're right. In the way that you explained it, still, you are right. I guess, you know what? I should have said it a bit different. So there was love, but it was love in the way that my mum knows how. And that is
I just thought I'd expand with you guys. Yeah.
No, you're right, and it's a good point that you raised, because I could have said it the way I said it and sent out the wrong message, like I didn't get nothing, if you get what I'm saying. Do you know what I mean? But I did. My mum did try to provide for me with the minimal resources that she did have. She did go to work and work hard. She always made sure the food was on the plate, so the basic needs was met. Do you know what I mean? It was just more the telling you I love you, if you get what I'm saying. It was more the hug. Do you know what I mean? It was more the not seeing the like that pride, that look of pride that a parent would have.
I've lived it, and I can tell you where I went next because I didn't have it.
Exactly.
So what do I do now?
Right. Yeah, I mean,
talking about everything you've said, I know it.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So I found when I was becoming a teenager, I was struggling, man, like in displaying love in the right way, if you get what I'm saying.
Towards who, though? That teenage friends, that girls of you growing up?
Girlfriends, like young partners and this and that, do you know what I mean? I know it was early doors, but when you have different girls coming and saying to you, I don't understand you, and trying to get an emotion out of you is like trying to get blood out of a stone, if you get what I'm saying. It made me realise,
a lot of brothers, though. A lot of brothers are like that, and I struggle because it's relentless.
Yeah,
it's relentless.
Yeah,
you know, and I guess the place where I feel, and please correct me, guys, the place where I feel that guys tend to desire to be the most expressive is in between the sheets, and it's a beautiful place to be. Okay. Yeah, right? Okay, yeah. But that can't be the only love language.
Yeah.
It can't be a case where you're speaking bilingual in the bed and when you come out, you're deaf, dumb, and stupid again and turn to Stevie Wonder and what's going on.
Yeah, true.
That's a common thing. That's like, babes, you know, I want to talk about how I feel. And that's when you're like, can we do this later, babes?
Very true. I agree.
Yeah, and so you will find it's a dangerous place. It's a very dangerous place for either man or woman to have too much space gaps in their connective relationships. If you leave too much space, don't expect other things to not fill it.
Very
and let
true.
me explain. I don't always mean another man or another woman. It doesn't have to always be just that in intimacy. But in that space, it's not a case of absence makes the heart, not in those cases. You will find that you start to build a relationship outside of that person with yourself. You don't even sometimes have a need or feel anymore. You just become a part of the mechanics because emotionally you are aloof. Emotionally, they don't have that. If somebody is, I'm not. By the way, we're not persecuting any one of us who struggles. I'm just at all. I'm just saying that if I capitalize on that point with you guys and tell you what that could look like, it could be mostly the man doesn't understand why the woman don't want to be as intimate as he wants to be, because to him it's just one thing, and for her she desires real intimacy, and that comes through talking way before the bedroom.
100%. It's the whole build-up thing, innit?
You see what I mean? So for me, I could be around a man who isn't even my initial type, but you see, if he gets me switched up spiritually or gets into like my emotional field, I could be in love with you tonight, straight away. Because you've taken me to a depth where now we can expand and connect that intimacy via that. But if I don't have that, and all we have is the mechanics, but I'm man, you're woman, and we don't really talk, I've got to keep forcing you to talk, you will find that, you know, we leave a lot of space for other things to come in. People, absence, and before you know it, relationship breakdown.
Yeah. Definitely. Very true.
You know, and I'm not against blaming. There's no pressure on anybody, but it's very reflective. And I just feel like, unfortunately, society, and I'm a part of that, has nurtured men to not want to be as vulnerable as we actually need you to be. You tend to want to switch on and off like a light switch, women like me, unintentionally sometimes.
That's true.
Sorry, I apologize on behalf of women like myself, okay? Yeah. Let me tell you what I mean by that. I have look, if anyone's watched me on my other talks, I can be a pit bull. It depends on what it is. This is more counselific. It's more therapy-based, and we're speaking on a different level. It's not a debate. I'd have to go in like the masculine energy, like men want to talk about, yeah? All right. This is different. So I can be softly toned, I can be nurturing. So it's very, very, very different. So I don't know. I mean, what's your thoughts in terms of, if we're talking about, you know, the absence of affection, verbalization, emotional verbalization, and the cause of that? I think a lot of our back home parents don't realize the cause of that.
The absence of what you say?
The absence of emotional verbalization. You know, for example, my son...
Reaffirming, like, that you love somebody, yeah.
My son's going to be 31 next week, God willing. And when he was young, I think I got on his nerves with how much I told him I loved him.
Yeah.
I also think I was making up, not even think, I know I was making up for the fact that I don't remember hearing it.
Yeah.
And for sure, by how I was treated to this day, that is nothing less than love. It's absolute love. I was absolutely loved. But I have a rendition of what love also looks like. Let's be clear on that.
Definitely.
If you were treated well in every aspect, but the absence of verbal, or maybe the relentless kiss and hugs that, you know, we see on TV, or maybe some of our friends may have, how that affected us. So how did it affect us? Me, I found as a young, you know, say teenager, I would be, what was mistaken for vanity was actually insecurity.
Wow, that's deep still, yeah.
Yeah, it was. I remember being in a guy's car that I still like. We're still in each other's socials now from the time I was like 16. I've known him, and every time I got in his car, one day he said, "If you get in my car looking at mirror one more time, I'm chucking you out."
Can I?
I was just insecure with myself.
Can I interrupt you and ask you a question?
Some
people might be confused, but as you said that statement that you used vanity to hide your insecurity, yeah?
I actually didn't. That's the thing. What I'm saying is vanity. No, I didn't use it. It was misunderstood as vanity.
Okay.
Right,
so, for example, okay, if I do this, it's because I feel like my locks need to be straightened, yeah? Okay. Somebody else might have just left it, but I like to just, you know, look sharp, all right? So let's say now I'm going back to my younger days and I'm checking myself. Clearly he felt like I was over-checking to make that remark. But what he didn't understand was, not because I thought I was popping. He thought I was popping, I realized after. For me, I was, you know, but when I looked at my pattern, that's a small part. And I looked at my pattern of, you know, kind of always I was self-soothing. I was reassuring myself. But though it looked like it was external, I'm kind of checking myself, it was actually internal. And it was the absence of, you can do anything, you are gorgeous. Remember, that's our generation to a degree, yeah? You know, the affirmations, the mantras, all this kind of stuff. Our parents don't know about mantras. Affirmation. You might have some old school parents that would say, you know, my daughter's beautiful or my son's so handsome. My son gets told all the time, and he actually genuinely is a handsome boy. I should say man at this point, yeah? You know, anything you can put your mind to it, you could do it should you choose. Yeah? You are loved. We may not like each other all the time, yeah, but I love you regardless. You are my my favourite child is that my mum, your only child. I said, exactly, that's why I can say that. Yeah, you know what I mean? So I've always consistently made him aware of everything. But you know what's interesting? I thought that as an adult, that would have such an impact on him for the better, that he would be, I guess, still gloating me as his mum, but not really.
Wow.
Not really.
Yeah.
And sometimes we are so reliving something that's absent in us for our children. And when we don't get that validation from our children or that appreciation, what do we say? Be honest, guys watching this. Oh, you don't appreciate nothing. In my day, we keep throwing that. Every generation keeps saying that, as if our children are supposed to know what our day was like.
That's true, still, you know.
That's unfair of us to do that. Do you know that? It's unfair because for me, I had this, there's no way, the way I love all my sons, from young, the way I loved all my, I was very firm. I was a disciplinarian by far. By far.
Yeah.
Allegedly more like the dads than the mums, because I'm told a lot of mums are not so, and he wasn't raised on smacks, licks, none of that. Yeah, I think I gave him 2 claps, I think 3 times, and I felt bad for that. I didn't raise him on licks. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I was very communicative mum. Have dinner, sit down, talk. That was my style. That was my style. Now, he was not into the talking things. To this day, he's not the biggest communicator. So he's genuinely not that way inclined, no matter what I try to put into him. So I did catch myself some years ago and said, why do I feel like I'm inflicting more trauma to myself? That's my ultimate question. Why? Where's it coming from? Okay. It's coming from the fact that because I didn't hear it, and because I didn't have the physical loved on for how I wanted it in my rendition, because I've always given my son that relentlessly, I'm anticipating a whole different outcome. But in fact, the way he is, as if I didn't give him any of that.
Very true.
So I'm grateful. Someone else would have loved to have a mum like me, but where's that coming from? It's coming from a place where I invested that expecting what?
A return.
What I was. So I think that's what I mean by where do we go from here? Like, where do we go with these experiences, these feelings? Where do we go? And for me, now I'm aware why I don't like certain men or why I'm attracted to certain men. Where does it come from? When I look at my dad as a real, for example of the masculine, that seems to be why I don't like guys who's not. I've had to look at a pattern of me and decide whether what works for me and what doesn't. But where's it coming? A lot of it's come from the absence of something from childhood. So you might find guys, you guys can tell me, might be boring your audience with me too much. Yeah.
No, you're spitting facts.
Thank you. You might find in your personal experiences or even women that you came across that due to not having a certain caliber of love, or maybe they were neglected or abused or whatever, you may find that many became promiscuous because of that.
Yep.
Or the opposite. Some became very prudish because of that. Why I use that example is because we often sexualize our emotions. We internalize these emotions and express it in a different form of art. And it always leads to sex for many people.
That makes sense.
For many, many, many people. And I remember saying to my son in the past, when you see women that are highly overtly can't keep themselves together, maybe they're used to that from childhood. That's all they've known.
Yeah.
That's deep, though. You're hitting some pointers, though. You're making me think a lot. I'm not going to lie. You are.
You know, maybe they're used to that. I grew up with this beautiful girl from school, and me and her went on the run. Well, I went on the run. She took me under her wing. Oh, no, about red story with me. There was a time where I realized that she was fully fledged having a intimacy, and I'm like, I haven't even broken my finger yet, but I'm about to. Yeah, yeah, I haven't.
Yeah.
And way she was moving was like a big woman, and we were like 15, 14, 15. And it turned out, and I couldn't understand how she was moving like a grown woman, like sexually, everything. And it turns out that, you know, her father was having intimacy with her for decades as a child.
Wow.
Oh.
So she was used to this kind of process, you know. The good thing is she wasn't promiscuous, but she was able to handle herself like a grown woman. And I feel I got the most respect for her to this day. But that made me aware from young that we externalize, and or you become the person who's very frigid and is ridiculously immature in your sexuality or expression. Example, I have a friend, or had a friend, should I say, she's a little bit older than me, and she's got 2 children, and she'll say things like, ew, kissing, oh, that's nasty. And I'm like, I'm very confused how you had 2 children.
I was just about to ask you the same thing.
Everything was always nasty, and everything was always, oh, I'm not a dirty girl. And I think we keep talking about bananas or apples. It'll go on to, I'm not a dirty girl. I said to her one day, I feel you've had abuse in your life. You're obsessive with making sure that you are not seen as unpure.
Yeah.
But sometimes people that carry on like that, they're the ones doing the most outside still.
Absolutely, but not this one. I knew that she wasn't.
Yeah.
The whole vibration, and I said to her, the way you behave, you feel the need to keep reiterating and affirming your purity. That's something that's not like kissing would be nasty to you. You've got 2 children, you have smear tests, what's wrong with you? Yeah, and then you open up in the doctor's, chair.
Yeah.
This is not now. What age group? And it turned out that, yes, she was abused as a child.
That's
So I can often tell the difference between the over-sexualized to the over-prudish. Like, where do these things come from?
Yeah, I'm like that as well. I can see sometimes.
Frigid should be the word, not prudish, frigid.
Yeah.
So where do we go from, guys? Didn't think you were going to ask me. No?
I know Genius has got a question or two. You got a Genius, fire away.
No, she's you've gone deep. You covered a hell of a lot of stuff, man. You went deep with a lot of stuff. You know, especially with the experiences, giving examples as well of patterns and things people should look out for, accountability. It's some very good stuff you mentioned, which should help a lot of people.
There is one thing that's come to mind as you said that I feel like is also paramount for all of us actually, is identifying as we go along in our journey the difference between connection and attachment, and often how our childhoods experiences have played a role in that. We often say, "Oh, that person's so connected." You might just be so attached and not connected.
Yeah, true.
But when you have a kind of loving and affection that you may have craved, you will find that you either fall in love too quickly with people, or you give too much of yourself to people, or the opposite extreme, which is you're not letting anybody in. You can be with that person for decades, they've not even heard, I love you. Like, we can go from the opposite end of the spectrum. But you will find that plays a massive role in what we think connection is, and sometimes how hard people protest that they're loyal. And they never had it before. That's why they're so deep with it.
Yeah.
They know what abandonment looks like or feels like, and they are riding till the wheels falls off. The wheels are falling off, they're still going.
Pushing
so I
through.
would say to your audience, when we're talking about riding or dying, great, do your thing, but just be sure to not be dying more than you're riding.
Yeah.
Nah, for real. Wow, man, I ain't gonna lie, man. I honestly, Free Flowing, you made me really think a lot, man, because I'll give you a quick example. Even when you was talking about the situation there with it, although you explained it different from how I'm thinking, but you was talking about the situation with you being in the car and looking in the mirror and your friend taking it as vanity. Automatically, it made me question when I was a player back in the day, yeah, made me start thinking, because I always thought that I was a player, and it is because of that as well, because my dad is like that. My dad's like as the Jamaican man say, gallus, innit? He had loads of women, loads of babies, blah, blah, blah. Move on to jumping. So I got brothers and sisters all over the place outside of my own family, do you know what I mean? But the way that I was loved by my mum, and me not being able to understand, although you broke it down today, at the time not being able to understand that providing for me is a form of love. That's how my mum showed it, but she didn't tell me it.
Yeah.
I went out into society now. I realized I went out into society now, possibly yearning for love and attention from females, and being a player and being confident with it gave me the opportunity to receive it from all these different women. And when I'd get it, and I'd get it too much, it's like, bye, on to the next one. Get it again, bye, on to do you get what I'm saying to you? So it's,
how did it feel, like, when you were doing that? And of course, you guys, it's okay for you guys, because you're guys and you can get away with it, and no one bats an eyelid as such. But how did it feel? Did you ever feel, were you physically fulfilled, but emotionally and maybe psychologically feeling like there was an empty space, or was you happy doing it?
I was happy doing it, It's strange, because also I got the element of when I was younger, girls weren't paying attention to me. I wouldn't say I was ugly, but I didn't find myself, and I didn't, you haven't built your character yet. So you haven't got your trademark look yet. So girls would say, oh yeah, we're all right, but you're cute, that's it, you know what I mean? But as I got older, I used to get kicks out of, we used to do this thing in the club where we used to go in the nightclubs, me and my 3-4 friends, yeah? And we'd go in, and as the nightclub's starting to get packed, we'd look at where the ladies are, and if the ladies are in the back right-hand corner, we'd say, all right, we'd come in, and we'd get our drinks, and we'd go to the back left-hand corner. By the time we're skanking out and busting our vibes, and the ladies see us, they've all moved from the right to the left where we are, and they're all around us. And we used to take a lot of pleasure out of that, if you get what I'm saying. Like, look how we just naturally draw them to our side, man. You know what I mean? But it was just that you wanted...
anything wrong with that. I went out last weekend, and me and my sister friend, we were the vibe. Like, I had so many people on camera bubbling and dancing with us. Like, we were, and if you can instigate an energy that's influential in a positive way, there's nothing wrong with that. Keep doing that.
Yeah, that's true.
I think the difference is that we're talking about is, in that moment that you just touched on, is kind of trying to fulfill that little empty void that you may not have got from the nurturing place of the nest from young, and what that looks like in relationships now as an adult. So in terms of did you, when women told you, I'm sure they did, like, I love you, or did you take it, or did you receive it, or did you find it difficult to take, or did you crave that you want to keep hearing it? What way did you go?
No, I didn't. I let them say it, but I didn't say it back. I went in a haste to say it back.
If you felt it, would you say it?
Say that again.
If you felt it, though, for them, would you tell them?
Yeah, if I felt it, I would, yeah. But I used to make sure that I didn't feel it fast at all.
How do you make sure you didn't feel it fast?
Because I was protecting myself. I suppressed my feelings.
Would you say that's healthy for us in terms of, like, discipline or survival? Or would you say that it's not healthy for us to express our feelings? What's your thoughts on that?
I think to an extent it's healthy, but to an extent it's not healthy as well, innit? It's like, it's hit and miss, innit? Because if you do it to the right person that could be trying to take advantage of you or something, then I suppose it protects you. But if you're doing it to a person that really likes you, and that could be a potential partner for life, you've just cut the string in two, innit? Do you know what I mean?
How are you now at your fine, ripe age? Yeah. Are you, even though I know, because I can sense vibrationally that you've learnt to live with it, but you're not over it. Again, it's fine. Some things we never get over. So I salute you for sharing that I know that so many people is going to appreciate what you said, just like G, yeah? And men hear about women talking all the time to the point where you are tired of us. Yeah, so hearing from you on these perspectives, not another podcast about what women isn't doing, what men's not doing, but something that actually is fundamental and foundational, like this talk right here, which it is.
Yeah.
You know, and it will make a difference to someone out there for sure. So I'd love to ask you, as we wrap up this particular topic, now as a man, how do you process love now? How are you with it all?
Yeah, I'm good with it now. I'm confident with it now. So I wouldn't say I'm the like perfect. I still got, you know, parts of me that I got to clean up and stuff like that. But I'm happy with it. I'm confident with it. I embrace it. I appreciate it. I always say I know what side my bread is buttered. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't mess it up and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? I got very strong self-discipline. You know what I mean?
Brilliant.
Yeah, so I've learned how to master that part. I've gone from somebody that would go and sleep around and draw in this attention and draw in that attention to somebody that can see somebody, acknowledge that they're beautiful, but keep it stepping. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And you lot got to remember, yeah, us women can lay down and think of England, and you lot can keep going. You guys can't lay down and think of England. We depend on you to be erectile, okay?
Yeah.
So if you lot keep dumbing out your back, what do you think is going to happen?
It's true.
Right about now, that man back done up from in their 30s.
Very true. There's a lot of men like in their 40s and that they're on blue pill now. You get me?
I mean, because people are taking that from young as even as a power trip as an experience. But I a lot of different people, and I know there's a barrage of. I know we're not going down this road, but it's to touch on that barrage of women that are complaining about this bedroom because man's done out here, and man's the man helping you lot again.
Oh my days, I have to give you a buzz for that.
You know what? And celibacy is a more attractive situation than dealing with these men who can't turn up. But I'll just stop right there. That's a whole other show.
Wow. Oh, you crap me off, you know. That's killed me, I swear.
So, guys, I would say that on that note, is there anything else that either of you would like to add before we wrap this up?
Nah, I'm good. You know, I think you covered everything. I think me and Geniuses opened up and answered your very insightful and questions that provoke you to go a little bit deeper. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I'm really, really pleased you feel that way. I've had an amazing time. Thank you both once again for inviting me onto your platform. You know, and for the viewers that on this platform, Triggered Thoughts, that your thoughts has been triggered. On that note,
that's beautiful.
We love that. Thank you for coming on.
Right?
Thanks, Freeflowing Thoughts. Appreciate it.
You are welcome. Absolutely. I'll allow you guys to close officially the show.
Yeah, we're going to get you on again anyway, so yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So listen, people, man, you've heard myself and Genius Dan open up, and you've heard how this whole episode is constructed by the beautiful Freeflowing Thoughts, you know what I mean? So hope you enjoy and take vital information, or, you know, you can kind of understand or relate to certain things that we've touched on, and maybe that will give you a little bit of learning on your journey towards healing. Do you know what I mean? So, listen, we're going to cut it short now. So on behalf of myself, Verbz, I'm going to say good night.
And for myself, Geniusman, until next time.
Namaste, guys. Absolutely, till next time.
Lovely. We'll see you guys next week on the next episode of the Triggered Thoughts podcast.
Bye, Freeflowing.